We arrived quite late in Wengen. The whole town or village is car-free, so the only way of getting there is by train. The hotels and shops have these small vehicles like the one which our hotel used to pick us up from the train station, but apart from that, you can't get there with your own car. And why is that? Well, it's because Wengen is actually on the mountains. Basically, the whole village is built on a natural ledge above the Lauterbrunnen valley. So this is what it looks like during daylight. It's right on the mountains, and the train does go up and down the valley. This was the hotel room. It was actually the cheapest hotel I could find in this area. It was about 260 euros per night for two, including breakfast. If you don't know, Switzerland is very expensive, and I think this area as well, compared to Geneva, I feel like it's more expensive. When we were visiting Geneva, it was quite easy to find a hotel room for less than 260 euros, but here it's almost impossible. On the bright side, the breakfast was very good. The bread was delicious, and I liked that they had variety. The staff was so nice. They actually went out of their way to help me with some things, so I really appreciated that. Another thing that was impressive from this hotel was what I could see from the windows in the dining area. You'd think this is wallpaper or just a postcard, but these are actual mountains. The Bernese Alps. After breakfast, we decided to go take a look outside. The funny thing is we didn't even plan to actually visit Wengen. The plan was to visit Lauterbrunnen. But since the hotels were so expensive, we thought maybe booking somewhere near would have been a better idea. And that's how we ended up in Wengen. And thank God I booked in this town. I've never heard of it until this trip. And when we arrived in the evening, I couldn't really see any of the surroundings. But in the morning when I looked out the window, my jaw dropped. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. When I went down to get the breakfast, I wasn't even going to take any pictures in this town. And when I tell you I rushed back to my hotel room to make sure I made myself look presentable to take pictures. Because wow, I've never seen anything like this before. I've been to Chamonix, France. It was also very beautiful, don't get me wrong, but it didn't have anything quite like this. Also, before I actually arrived in Wengen, I didn't know that we'll be going up the valley. I just thought maybe we're going to go to a remote area where cars are not allowed. But when I was on the train on my way here, that's when it became clear that we're actually going to go up the valley. When I was on the train, it actually felt like I was on a cable car because it was going upwards.
Are you filming?
Yeah. It was around Easter time, and I had no idea that it actually still snows here because apparently 2 days before we arrived, snow fell. I forgot the exact meters or centimeters, but despite looking like it should be really cold, it was actually quite hot, and a lot of people were also walking around with t-shirts. If you're wondering how high this village is, it's actually 1,274 meters above sea level. So that's about 4,180 feet. Wengen sits high above the Lauterbrunnen Valley, and the two are linked by the railway. Since Wengen is car-free, everything, people, luggage, supplies, it all comes up from Lauterbrunnen by train. Lauterbrunnen acts as a transport hub at the bottom of the valley, while Wengen is the peaceful mountain village above it. As impressive as the views are, don't forget this is still high up in the mountains. To even think about how did they even get the power lines up? The sewer system, how do they deal with the waste? I tried asking these questions and all I got was it's by the train. I still find it amazing because how did the first people build the railway then? And if everything is by the train, how did they manage to get the log cars in the train to get them to Wengen? Like these ones. You can find quite a lot of things in Wengen. They even have a school, but it's only up to primary level. The older kids have to get trained to other towns for secondary school. So why did they leave the land at the bottom and build on top? Basically, Wengen originally started as a small farming settlement above the valley. Local families moved up there mainly for practical reasons. It was better for summer grazing, it had more sunlight, and it was also a way to avoid flooding at the bottom. It wasn't built for tourists at all. And over time, those seasonal farming areas slowly turned into a permanent village. And in the 1800s, early alpine travelers and climbers began to visit the region for scenery and fresh mountain air. And eventually, tourism grew. It grew especially after the railway was built. It made it so much easier to access the village. This is the Wengen train station. I just had a thought. Before the railway, how did they get the animals up in the mountains for grazing? Were they goats since they can climb up? But what if it was cows? How did they do it? I have so many unanswered questions. Since this village has residents, some parts are prohibited for tourists. Like, I wanted to see what's on the other side of the rail track, and I saw a sign that said, no tourists. Which is weird because this side also has a hotel. You can do a few activities in Wengen, but they all depend on the season. So for example, during this time, this was around April, so the first week of April, you could ski, snowboard, sled, and do maybe some hiking. They also have some ski schools. I really would like to do a proper plan for Wengen since during this trip, the plan was to visit Lauterbrunnen. So I really just had a few minutes to look around, then make my way to Lauterbrunnen. I really don't understand the science behind having snow, yet the temperature was actually quite hot. As I said, some people were walking around in t-shirts. And actually, before, when I used to see things like that, like let's say on TV or social media, I used to think it's just people seeking attention, but now I completely get it. After a few minutes of walking around Wengen, it was time to check out of the hotel room, so we went back to the hotel. And this was actually the view from the balcony of the hotel room. It looked like this. And I love this alpine architecture. See how there's still so much snow on the ground. But the sun was actually quite strong as well. And this was the view from the corridor window. So yeah, pretty much every direction you looked at, the views were just amazing. And this village made me really understand why there's so much hype around Switzerland. This country is just so beautiful. The architecture, the infrastructure. Before leaving for Lauterbrunnen, we stopped over in one of the supermarkets for some drinks and snacks. It pretty much had everything I was looking for. The restaurants, however, most of them were kind of similar. We actually went to a restaurant the night before, but I forgot to record. And everything was so pricey, but the food was just okay. Most restaurants would have an average price of like 40 euros or not 40 euros, 40 francs. But Swiss francs are actually valued more than euros, so that's about 43 euros. And the type of food would be like burgers, steak and chips, and some fondue. Fondue is basically just melted cheese, so I don't know why it had to be that expensive. Another option that was available was a fast food place that had some burgers. It was packed though. But when it comes to restaurants, there weren't that much variety in my opinion. I guess because it's just a village or a small town. But at the same time, they do get a lot of tourists, so I'm sure there's room for more. The prices in the supermarket, I think they were fair. They were kind of like just how prices would be in like a really busy area, like in a capital city or something. Eventually, we got on the train, and from there, you could actually see Lauterbrunnen, the lower valley. Can you see that? So we're coming on top from the mountains and going all the way down to Lauterbrunnen. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.